everyone, Amanda here. Thank you so much for joining me. We're on week 19 of my mixed media challenge. So I'm going to be sharing the images with you for this week, quickly telling you where you can get them from, and then I'm going to do my layout with you here on this video. In the first instance, I just want to give a really quick shout out to those who have left me donations on my Ko-fi. So those are from ladies, and they were all ladies, who left me a little extra last month. Some people left me extra because I shared 34 pages of art journaling images for free. So some people left me a donation, and then some just randomly leave them just for support, and I really appreciate it. And today I had one pop up just before I started filming from a lady called Liz. It doesn't give the surname, so I don't know, but I really do appreciate it because all of the donations do go towards art supplies that I use in my videos so I can keep inspiring you. And I treat myself to this script stencil because I do have stencils with script on, but it's just parts, little bits of it, you know, and I'm like, you know, because I'm a big believer in use what you've got. But the donations meant I was able to get a full script stencil and a full script stamp. I've only got tiny ones, so this is really useful. And I was also able to get the large archival black ink, which when you're using a large stamp is really useful. So thank you for your donations. It really does help, and it 100% goes on art supplies. I do have a personal budget each month that I allow myself, but it's quite small. I'm a little bit frugal. So when I do get donations, it really does help. So thank you. Right, week 19. So this is called Make a Wish, and I found this cute little child. It's a little bit cartoony, but it's still really nice, and blowing on a dandelion, and that kind of inspired this little collection of images. So I've added a floral border with some little wild flowers, and giving you an extra one there. And we've got this large dandelion here. Now, when I'm making these images, I play about with them on my PC, on the software that I use, and I size them very carefully. And so I've made this really large on purpose so that it would sit behind the child, okay? And it'd be really big and prominent and fun, okay? Obviously, I've given you quite a few so you can use what you want. You've got a few options this week. We've got some butterflies. I've done a label in the sage green, which I've taken that colour from one of the leaves, etc. And then on this page here, if you don't want to use this, you could maybe use this frame instead, which is dandelions. And you can either just cut it out whole, or you could, if you want to fussy, cut the middle out. And I've sized that as well, so it will sit behind this child. Yeah, you can layer them up. You've got some words here. Had to redo this page because I'd spelt half of the words wrong. I don't know where my brain is sometimes. I'm very bad at spelling. So we've got be resilient, make a wish, you can grow even in difficult situations. So I think that's very poignant. And then on this one, I'm not going to say I'm going to do it every week, but on this one, I've not given you a background. I think by week 19, you should be able to, if you've been following my videos, you should be able to think of a way of making your own background. If you want to collage, use book pages and scraps, or, you know, maybe experiment with your acrylic paints or your watercolours or your distress inks or whatever you want to use. And I've given you the colours here. And I've picked out all of the main colours. So the green has come from these leaves. The yellow has come from the dandelions. The purple or lilac has come from these little wild flowers. And I've taken the blue from the butterflies, just so that it helps. And you've got the hex codes there if you want to recreate them yourself. So these are available in my Facebook group. Weeks 1 through 14 are available free on my Ko-fi. We're on week 19, so there's extra free ones in my Facebook group. The link is always below every video. If you come to join, you must answer the 3 joining questions, or I won't let you in, I'll be mean. So there you go. So, right, I'm going to get fussy cutting and we'll get creating. and we're off. So as always, I'm just having a think about where I want to place my images before I get cracking. And I always do kind of do that, a very loose plan, but other than that I've got no plans. I've mixed some paint, I've tried my best to get close to the colour swatches that I added to this week's images by mixing different paints and getting as close as I could, but by the time I've added the water and sponged it, it's quite muted, and so I can get away with it not being an exact match. It's fine. And I really enjoy using the sponge. I think it gives a nice effect. I had gessoed the page before I did this. The gesso will stop the acrylic sinking deep into the fibres of the paper so that it sits more on the top, and you don't lose your vibrancy of colour, and it also makes it a little bit easier to move around the page. So if I'm using a lot of acrylic, I will add gesso. And it almost gave a resist effect with this paint. I think it's because it's quite cheap craft paint, so it left like splodges, but I went with it and ended up quite liking it. So here I'm adding just a mustardy yellow. Again, it's just cheap craft paint, and decided that my sponge was dirty. So I got a new sponge and carried on going. Just sponging a very, very light background, trying my best to leave some white space. And here I'm drying in between. Really important to dry those layers and make sure that that page is absolutely bone dry before you do anything else. So what am I doing here? Forget what I'm doing when I do a voiceover. Adding matte medium. I like to use Liquitex matte medium to stick my images down. I just like it. It's not all over my hands. I'm using a silicone brush. Whenever I use the glue stick, it ends up all over my hands, and I really don't like the feel of it. So if I can get away with just using the matte medium, I will. And then I'm going to seal over the top of the images with the matte medium, which will stop the colours running, because I only print it on printer paper. That's all these images are. 120 GSM printer paper. And then I'm adding my other images. Absolutely love this little child blowing on the dandelion, making a wish, which is the theme of this week's collection. So here I'm adding the larger one to the other side. I do like doing a double spread. I feel like I've got more, I know it sounds common sense, but more room to create. When I do a double spread, I feel a little bit limited on a single page. So there I'm just dabbing off some of the matte medium, because I tend to add a little bit too much, and I'm just removing a tiny bit just so that it dries quicker. It wouldn't matter, but I'm impatient. I can't wait for things to dry, so I was just removing a little bit of the excess. Added the label and one of the butterflies. I decided to wait to add the other butterfly, because I was thinking, well, if I want to add some more paint around that dandelion, I need to wait to add my butterfly. So that's why I waited. And again, dry, 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 really important. I've not edited it out because I hate editing. I hate it. It's a pain in the bum. It takes ages and it's actually hard to do. So I just leave it in. I hope you don't notice. But I have sped it up. So here I'm adding some more of that kind of mustardy yellow colour. Trying to give a yellow glow around the dandelion there on the left. It didn't quite work, but I've got a nice glowy look there on the right hand page by adding darker colour to the middle and then leaving the middle kind of lighter. So I'm really happy with how that's turned out. I will say that this page is very much a journey, and I think this page, as I will explain at the end, is where I realise that I have found my art journaling style. So stay tuned and watch the whole process. It's a long process, but there's a lot of steps, and I've done a lot of layers, I've done a lot of playing, a lot of experimenting, and I've learned a lot. So here I'm adding some gesso. I'm trying to, again, go for this kind of glow look around that dandelion. I don't think I ever quite achieved it fully, but I kept trying with layers, and sometimes things just don't work exactly how you want them. Maybe there's another product that I can use, or another technique that I can use in the future that will be more successful at doing this. But for now I'm using gesso, and I like to get my hands in there. I don't mind getting paint on my hands, I just don't like glue stick. So I'm smooshing around to try and give a dreamy effect. I end up covering up some of this because I end up deciding that I want a darker frame at the bottom, as you'll see as we go. There we go. There's quite a few instances in this video where I change my mind. I'll explain as we go. So now I'm able to add the second butterfly because I've finished with my paints, and I'm setting that and drying that off. I don't know what I'm doing now. Oh yeah. So this is where I have a brainwave of creating some grass at the bottom. So I'm just randomly, because I can't draw, doing squiggly lines with my Inktense pencils, and I've chosen those because I know that they stay quite vibrant, and I know that if I don't add too much water I'll still have some of those scratchy pencil marks showing, which I want to, you know, make it obvious that it's grass rather than just a green painty mess. And I do add more things to it to define it better. And I'm trying to like go upwards in a flicky motion to make it look more like grass. I end up getting there in the end. It's a case of keeping going until you get the look you want and persevering. Once the Inktense pencils are dry, it becomes permanent, which is one fantastic thing. I knocked the camera there and it slipped, sorry. So here I'm going in with a darker Inktense pencil and trying to make the definition of grass a bit more cohesive. So I'm trying a bit harder to make it look a bit more like grass, doing it in different lengths, and this is a much darker colour. So I've got kind of layers because grass isn't all one colour and it's not flat, is it? So, and then here I'm trying to add more of a halo effect around the image with a white Inktense pencil. It doesn't really work, it doesn't really do anything. So I know not to bother doing that again. I keep trying even though I can quite clearly see it's not working and it's doing nothing. Excuse me. But I keep trying and I keep playing, and that's what you do. So here I'm smooshing that. I decide it's a little bit on the green side, but I end up adding extra layers shortly, which tones that brightness of that green down, and it really turns out good in the end. So perseverance is key. I've gone a little bit off shot here. I hope I move the journal a bit. So here I'm using my new stamp, and I decided to be brave and use a colour. Now this is one instance where I'm glad I used matte medium over everything, because I actually decide, and I'm glad that I didn't use an archival ink. This is a water-based pigment ink. And I thought, oh, I'm safe to use it because I'm not going to be putting any more layers on. It's going to be fine. But once I've done, I actually don't like it. I think, no, it's not right. And I'm drying it off, but I'm like, it's not right. So then learning from last week when I did the gesso stenciling and I really didn't like it, I thought, I wonder if I can get it off. So I wet a cloth and here presto, I was able to remove it. So I'm really pleased because I really didn't like it. But then I went in with a different stamp, with smaller script, with archival black. And I wish I'd used grey, because I do find that black stamping can be a little bit harsh. And I do have a grey ink, and I really wish I'd used grey. I think if I'd used grey, I would be 1,000,000% happy with this page. But you live and learn. It looks like I'm staying off shot ever so slightly there. It's only a few millimetres. It's just the edge of that flower. Hopefully you'll see the rest. But you'll see it at the end. So now I remember that I've got this like splatter stamp, and I start adding it just in random places, thinking I just want a little bit, and then I end up going bonkers and I frame the entire page with this splatter, and I really end up liking it. I'm just moving the stamp in different directions. The spirals were in the way there, so I took it off the block, keeping turning it round, and that's given me a really pretty border. I really like it, and it kind of inspired me later on in the page. So here I'm doing a little bit of shading with some graphite pencil. I'm not the world's best at this. So I do bits and then I rub bits out, and then I do bits and I rub bits out until I'm happy with how it looks, because I like the shady look, but I don't want my page to look dirty. And sometimes when you rub it with your hands, it gives you a very grungy look, which if you're going for a grungy look is awesome, but I'm not going for a grungy look. I just want a little bit of shading. So in some areas, you know, I'll come in with my rubber, and where it's gone a little bit too smudgy, I'm just taking some of it away, but not all of it. So you're getting the shade, but not the grunge, if you know what I mean. Also, my hand-eye coordination is not brilliant. So sometimes when I'm drawing around things, I'm about 5 miles off. So I have to rub it out and start again. But yeah, we get there in the end, and I'm really, really happy with it. I think I might start using the graphite pencil instead, because it's got a sharper point than this one. And this is like a solid piece of graphite. My other pencils are like wooden pencils with a lead in. So they're a bit more pointed. So maybe I'll give those a try next time. But I don't think they smudge as well. It's a case of just keeping going and trying. So I've got my shading down there nicely, and I'm deciding on my words. I have a bit of a moment with these words. A bit of a moment. And a little bit of my perfectionism kicks in, and I almost ruin the outline of the words, but you'll see that I bring it back, and I end up making it look like it's been backed on cardstock because I went too far. So try not to ruin things by doing too much. I know it's easy said, but the amount of times that I do it, and if you watch me, then learn from my mistakes. I should have left my words as they were. But, you know, it's never enough, is it, in Amandaland? I've always got to go too far, and then I'll make a mistake, and then because I've made a mistake, I've got to keep going and end up going even further. So anyway, in the meantime, I'm adding some white highlights with this Uniball, whatever it's called. It's brilliant. I like this better than Posca pens, better than anything. It's really good. And I'm just decided to add some white in the grass as well, just to lift that colour a right little bit. And you might not see it on camera, but it really does give a really lovely effect in with the grasses. It's almost like highlights, I suppose. There, I'm moving my page over ever so slightly. And this is where, you know, I kind of messed it up. And I always share with you when I mess things up. And I started doing it freehand, and I'm just not very good at freehand, and it went wonky. So then panic set in, and my OCD tendencies, I don't have OCD, I shouldn't joke about that, that's a very serious condition. My perfectionism kicked in, and yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me. So then I started framing it, and I thought, I know what I can do. I'll just make that line really thick to cover up my mistake and make it look like it's backed on cardstock. I should have just left it alone. I think it was a little bit heavy, and I really need to learn to leave things alone instead of keeping adding and keeping adding and keeping adding. I'm shocking. But it worked out alright in the end. It actually looks really nice because we've got quite subtle colours and it's soft and pretty. The framed black words actually, you know, it helps them stand out on the page, and I think that the words this week are quite poignant. You can grow even in difficult situations, and then to the other side it says be resilient, and I think that's very much what I have to be when it comes to art journaling. Then I thought I was smart and I'd do some funky writing with my white pen, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I left some of it on the green parts, but I didn't like it on the yellow. So, you know, I've learned that I can wipe things off, and so rather than leaving it and thinking, oh, it'll do, you know, I've wiped it off. Then I'm thinking about splatters. I was going to do white, and I've got really brave, and I've done purple. How brave am I? I've never done coloured splatters before, and it's just a lilac acrylic ink, and I got a bit carried away. And I don't know if you'll see, because it looks like I'm off screen to avoid my cover getting in that paint, but I'm actually adding the splatters loads of the purple splatters in the grass at the bottom. It's not showing because I'm keeping my book out of the way. And the purple splatters at the bottom of the page then look like little flowers. Hopefully, there we go, moving it up. Then I decided it's never enough and I've got to keep going. I think I am going to have a style where I just have loads of detail. Loads and loads of detail on my pages. That's little tiny detail that nobody else probably knows is there, but it's part of my process. And so I start adding loads of little white dots. And again, in the grass, it looks like little tiny wild flowers. So we've got the purple specks from the splatters and then my white dots. I also wanted to tone down that black stamping. And so my resolution for that was to add in some white spots. And I end up adding in quite a lot of white spots, and I end up framing that little image there with the little white dots. And that made my heart happy because I've been trying to give it like a glowy halo effect. And in my mind, close up, those little dots do that. So that's another technique that I can do. And it breaks up some of the colour as well. Some of that strong colour, it really breaks it up. You can see me there. I'm thinking I'm a bit smart, and I'm thinking, wow, you're amazing, Amanda. This page is really turning out lovely. Then I go for the pastels, which I like to frame my page in. And I thought, I'm going to be brave, and I've gone for purple. And there's purple in the flowers, in the little flowers there at the bottom. And I just thought the purple would be lovely. So I'm going crazy with these. They are Derwent ones. I got them very, very cheap second hand, and they'd never been used. I was thrilled. I got all my Inktense pencils and my Inktense blocks second hand as well, and they'd never been used, never been touched. There was still, the wrapper had been taken off, but I bought them second hand at a local art shop and got a very, very good deal. Otherwise, there's no way I could have afforded them. They are quite expensive. And so I'm adding more. I'm getting brave, and I'm thinking I want to add more of this purple, and I just love it. It's gorgeous. And then, you know, because it's never enough, I decide to add a gilding wax. And this is a Stamperia one, and it's called I can't remember what it's called. Shall I reach over and get it really quickly? It's called it's a patina anticante. I don't know, but it's really lovely. And I like the smell of the stuff. Maybe I'm a bit of a rub and buff junkie, but I just love the dreamy look that it gives. I'm really, really enjoying it. And I absolutely loved making this page. And as I'll show you, I think I found my style. Okay. So I had a bit of a moment of madness, and I couldn't stop because I just didn't feel like it was finished. Completely nothing what I had in my head. I was going for a very soft, muted, minimal kind of look. But I know this sounds weird, but I think I found my vibe as it was. And I think I did it here, but I didn't quite get it right. And then I think it kind of started here. And I think I also did it. Where is it? Here. On that one. And on the green fairy here. So I think that is definitely going to be my art journal kind of style, rather than like abstract or minimal, or I think I need to tell a full story. I think I need to put a full story on my page. And I think I'm just going to be one of those crafters or art journalers. I don't consider myself an art journaler, I'm a crafter that just has to put lots of detail on the page. And we've got lots of layers here. I especially loved when I started doing the purple splatters. I was very brave there because I've never done coloured splatters. And then as I started adding them, I thought, ooh, if I flick them in the grass that I've drawn, they'll look like little tiny flowers. And then I started with the white dots. So the little purple, you might not be able to see them, but the little purple splatters and the white dots look like tiny little flowers growing in the grass. I absolutely love it. So yeah, the only thing I'm not mad keen on is some of my stampings a bit. Nah, I don't know. I've not found my right script, I don't think. The other one that I tried was too large. This one, I think maybe I should have used a grey instead of the black. It's a little harsh, but I'm really happy how that page turned out. I really like it. I hope you enjoyed my process. I'm sorry it was a long one, but as you can see, my brain wants to put a lot of detail into these pages. So I think after 19 weeks, I found my style, and I'm just going to go with it, and I'm going to see what happens. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.